Alright, so if you're still using dynamic ads the way you were 6 months ago, you're wasting a lot of money. Meta completely overhauled how creative testing works, and most people are still operating with the old playbook. They're loading up dynamic ad optimization, like dynamic creative optimizations, throwing in a bunch of hooks, primary text, and expecting Meta to figure it all out. But that's not how the system works anymore. And that's why your campaigns are inconsistent as fuck. The creative testing framework changed. The way Meta evaluates and serves creative combinations changed. And if you don't understand that, you're burning your budget. Hi, my name is Gian Bernard, and I help business owners build ad systems that actually attract qualified leads. And I've had the privilege to manage over $87 million of ad spend working with brands like Amazon.com and a lot of the top info product guys you see all over on YouTube and on Instagram. So I'm not speculating about what might work, I'm showing you what I'm actually seeing in live accounts right now. If you're running creative tests, if you're using dynamic ads, if you're trying to scale with multiple ad variations, this video is for you. So we're gonna break down what changed with Meta's creative testing system and why dynamic ads are failing and what you should be doing instead. So I'm gonna show you the new testing framework, the creative production strategy that actually works, and how to structure campaigns for consistent performance. This isn't some 5-minute overview where I tell you, trust the algorithm and test more. We're going deep, and by the end of this, you'll know exactly how to restructure your creative testing. So if you're new here, I post content just like this, breaking down what actually is working in paid ads right now. No courses, no income claims, just real breakthroughs from someone who's in the trenches every single day. All right, let's get into it. All right, so let's start with what dynamic creative optimization used to be and how most people still think it works. So the old model was simple. You load up multiple hooks, multiple primary text or ad copy, and multiple images or videos into a single ad. Meta would mix and match those elements and serve different combinations to different people based on what it predicted would perform best. The promise was efficiency. Instead of manually creating 20 different ads, you load up 5 hooks and 4 primary texts, and Meta creates those combinations. 5 times 4 equates to 20. So you'd see 1 or 2 combinations dominate, and you'd get decent performance without having to manually build every single variation. But here's what most people didn't understand even back then. Dynamic creative was never actually testing creative concepts. It was testing component combinations within a single creative concept. So if your core concept was weak, or if your messaging wasn't dialed in, dynamic creative wouldn't save you, or even couldn't save you. It would just serve different versions of the same mediocre ad. So now, with the recent overhaul, Meta completely changed how it evaluates and prioritizes creatives within dynamic setups. They shifted the weight toward full creative cohesion instead of just individual component performance. So what that means in Meta is now looking at whether the hook, the body, and the CTA actually work together as a complete narrative before it could serve the highest performing hook with whatever body text it happened in rotation, even if there was a mismatch. So now if your hook is talking about lead quality and your body text is talking about scaling revenue, Meta sees that as a mismatch. And instead of just serving it anyway, the algorithm deprioritizes that combination because it doesn't create a cohesive user experience. This is a massive shift because it means you can't just throw random shits into dynamic creatives and hope it figures it out. You have to be intentional about which element you're pairing together, or the system won't serve them effectively. So here's why dynamic ads are failing for most people right now. People are loading up 5 to 10 hooks that are all saying different things, addressing different problems, and targeting different segments. And then they're pairing those hooks with generic body copy that tries to be relevant to everyone. And this results in a Frankenstein ad that doesn't resonate with anyone. Meta's new system recognizes this mismatch and either serves it to the wrong people or doesn't serve it at all. So if your impressions drop, your CPM goes up, and your cost per result skyrockets because nothing is cohesive. The second issue is that most people are using dynamic creative as a crutch to avoid actually thinking through their messaging. They think, I'll just load up a bunch of stuff in here and let Meta figure it out. But Meta can't figure out your positioning for you. It can only optimize delivery of what you give it. So if you're giving it a mess or some shit, the output is going to be a mess and some shit. Let me give you a specific example of what cohesion looks like versus what it isn't. Let's say you're running an ad for business owners who are struggling with lead quality. That's what we're running. So people who are struggling with lead quality from their paid ads. A cohesive ad would have a hook like, if your leads are unqualified and wasting your sales team's time, here's why. And the body would then explain the root cause of poor lead quality, introduce your solution, and show proof. And the CTA would be something like, book a call to fix your lead quality in the next 30 days. So that is cohesive from A to Z. The hook, body, and CTA are all aligned around one specific problem and one specific outcome. Now, if you load a hook into dynamic creative alongside a body that talks about scaling to 7 figures and a CTA that says download our free guide, that's not cohesive. Meta's new algorithm will recognize that mismatch and deprioritize it, which means you're paying for impressions that don't even convert. And this is happening at scale across multiple accounts right now, which is why so many people are seeing inconsistent results. All right, so let's talk about what this actually looks like in your ad account. The first signal that showcases that your creative testing is broken is when one ad gets all the spend and the others get nothing. You launch 5 ads in one campaign, and within 24 hours, one of them has spent 80% of the budget. The other 4 are sitting there with $5 to $10 spent, and you're wondering why Meta isn't testing them. This used to be normal. Meta would find a winner quickly and allocate budget accordingly. But now if only one ad is getting spent, it usually means the other ones are not cohesive enough to compete. Meta looks at the creative elements, sees the mismatch or weakness, or just stops serving them. So you're actually not testing 5 ads, you're testing 1 ad and wasting budget on 4 others that never had a chance. Second signal, you find a winning ad, you scale it up, and performance immediately tanks. This is one of the most frustrating experiences in paid ads, and it's happening more often under the new creative testing system. You have an ad that is crushing at $500 a day. You bump it up to $2,000 a day, and suddenly the cost per lead doubles. No shit. So what's happening is that ad was working for a specific pocket of the audience, but it's not broad or cohesive enough to scale. So Meta's new system is better at matching specific creative to specific people, but that means creative that is narrow hits a ceiling. And instead of letting performance degrade slowly, Meta's system now reallocates budget away from ads that are not performing at scale. So you end up with spiking costs and inconsistent delivery. Third signal, your ads are getting tons of engagement, likes, comments, but conversions are shit. This is a classic signal that your creative is entertaining, but not persuasive. People are engaging because the content is interesting or relatable, but they're not taking action because there's no clear path to value. And under Meta's new creative testing system, engagement doesn't carry the same weight it used to. The algorithm is now more focused on whether people are completing the desired action, not just whether they're interacting with the ad. So if you're optimizing for conversions, but your creative is only generating engagement, Meta sees that as a mismatch. And instead of continuing to serve that ad, it deprioritizes it in favor of ads that are actually achieving the desired results or conversion event. Fourth signal, and this is a big one. Your dynamic ads are underperforming single asset ads. So you set up a dynamic ad, 5 hooks, 3 primary text, and it's getting outperformed by a single static ad with 1 hook and 1 body. This is a clear sign that the new creative testing system is rejecting your dynamic setup. Because if the elements you loaded up into the dynamic creative were actually cohesive and strong, they'll be beating the static ad. But if they're not cohesive, Meta can't serve them effectively. So the dynamic ad just burns budget without delivering results. And this is what most people are experiencing right now. Dynamic creative used to be a shortcut to efficiency, and now it's a shortcut to wasted ad spend. So here's the root cause of all of these symptoms. Most people don't have a creative strategy, they have a creative volume strategy. They think the answer is to produce more hooks, more variations, and more combinations, and just let Meta sort it out. But Meta's new system doesn't reward volume, It rewards cohesion, clarity, and strategic messaging. A clear ICP and a clear problem solution narrative, no amount of volume is going to save you. You need to think through what you're saying, who you're saying it to, and why it matters to them. And then you need to build a creative that communicates that narrative cohesively from start to finish. That's the new creative testing system that is optimized for you. And if you're not doing that, you're fighting an uphill battle. All right, so now let's talk about what you should be doing instead, starting with the foundational mindset shift. Stop thinking about creative testing as building a library of hooks, bodies, and CTAs you mix and match. Start thinking about it as building a complete, cohesive ad where every element supports a single narrative. Each ad should be a full concept, one problem, one solution, one proof point, and one CTA. If you want to test 5 different angles, you need to build 5 full fleshed out ads, not just 5 hooks and 1 body, because Meta's new system evaluates creative as a complete user experience, not just a collection of parts. Second principle, test concepts, not variations. A concept is a unique angle on the problem your audience is facing and how your solution addresses it. For example, if you're helping business owners with ad performance, here are 3 different concepts. Concept number 1, your ads are failing because your creative looks cheap and unprofessional. Concept number 2, your ads are failing because you're targeting the wrong people with the wrong message. Concept number 3, your ads are failing because your funnel doesn't qualify leads, so you're wasting time on unqualified calls. So each of those is a distinct concept, and each requires completely different ad. So now, a variation is just a different execution of the same concept. If concept number 1 is about creative quality, your variation would be changing the hook from your ads look cheap, your ads don't look premium enough. That's the same exact concept, just reworded. That's not good. Most people are testing variations when they should be testing concepts. And Meta's new system rewards concept diversity, not variation volume. Third principle, every element of the ad, like the hook, body, and visuals, CTAs, need to align with the core message of that concept. If your concept is about lead quality, your hook should call out the lead quality problem. Your body should explain why lead quality is bad and how you fix it. And your visuals should reinforce credibility and professionalism because lead quality is a trust issue. And your CTA should be clear and direct. Book a call to audit your lead quality. So everything points in the same direction, which creates a cohesive user experience for the user. So now if you take that same hook and pair it with a body copy about scaling revenue, you've broken the cohesion. Meta's new system will see that as a misaligned and deprioritize it. So you have to be ruthless about making sure every single element supports the core concept. Fourth principle, stop using dynamic creative for concept discovery. Use it only for refinement. So here's what I mean by that. Once you've identified a winning concept through manual testing of full ads, you can use dynamic creatives to refine this execution. For example, if you know the lead quality concept is working, you can load 3 variations of that lead quality hook into dynamic creatives. Then you can test 2 slightly different body copy variations that both address lead quality. You can test 2 CTAs that both align with the core message, and now Meta is mixing and matching alternatives that are all cohesive because they are all part of the same concept. That's how dynamic creative should be used, to optimize winning concepts, not to discover the concept in the first place. But most people are using it backwards. They're trying to discover concepts with dynamic creative testing, and it doesn't work. Fifth principle, when you produce creatives, produce it with a scale in mind, not just testing. Most people produce low effort creatives for testing, thinking they'll upgrade it once it works. But by the time you validate a concept, you've already spent money and budget on a shitty looking ad. And when you try to scale the upgraded version, it doesn't perform the same because it's a different ad. So instead, produce every test ad as it's going to be your main scaling creative. That means good lighting, clean background, professional visuals, clear audio, and cohesive messaging. Yes, it takes more effort up front, but it just means when you find a winner, you can scale it immediately without having to reproduce it. And under Meta's new creative testing system, production quality matters more than it used to because it signals credibility. Ads that look premium get better treatment from the algorithm because they generate better user experiences. All right, now let's talk about how to structure your campaigns to actually test creatives effectively under the new system. First thing, stop running all your creative tests in one dynamic campaign. I see people launching a campaign with 5 to 10 ads, all testing different concepts, and they expect Meta to distribute the budget fairly or accordingly. But Meta's new system doesn't distribute budget fairly. It allocates budget to the ads it predicts will perform best. So if one ad shows early signs of success, now that ad will get 80% of the budget and the others get starved of ad spend. That means you're not actually testing. You're just letting Meta pick a favorite in the first few hours. Instead, here's what you should do. Use a campaign budget optimization, but segment your concepts into separate ad sets. So if you're testing 3 concepts, create 3 ad sets within the same CBO campaign, 1 ad set per concept. Each ad set gets 1 full ad that represents that concept. Now Meta is distributing budget across ad sets, not individual ads, which forces it to test each concept more thoroughly. You're essentially telling Meta, I want you to evaluate these 3 concepts against each other, not just pick one and move on. This gives you actual data on which concepts resonate, which is what you need to make informed decisions. Second thing, set minimum spend thresholds for each ad set so Meta doesn't starve the losers way too early. Most platforms let you set a minimum or maximum spend per ad set within a CBO campaign. Use that to force Meta to spend at least $100 to $200 per ad set before it makes an allocation decision. That way you can get real data on each concept instead of just early noise. Because sometimes an ad that looks weak in the first 24 hours actually performs better once it finds the right audience. But if Meta kills it after $20 in ad spend, you will never know. Now let's talk about the third thing. Test whether each concept performs better with broad or specific targeting. And this one goes back to targeting philosophy I always talk about. Targeting happens on the creative level, not the ad account settings. But some concepts are broad enough to work with open targeting, while others need more specific audiences to resonate. For example, if your concept is about lead quality, that's a broad problem, so broad targeting will probably work. But if your concept is about fixing lead quality, specifically for e-commerce brands running meta ads, that's more niche. So you might need tighter targeting. So when you're testing concepts, also test the targeting strategy that best matches the specificity of those ads. Don't mix VSL ads and short form ads in the same campaign. They need separate structures. So VSL ads work best with high friction funnels and broad targeting because the VSL itself does the qualification work. Short form ads work best when paired with specific targeting or low friction funnels because they rely on volume. If you mix both of those together in the same campaign, Meta's algorithm will get confused about what success actually looks like. Is it a long watch time with qualified leads, or is it a quick click with high volume? So segment them into separate campaigns, each optimized for that type of creative and funnel you're running. All right, now let's talk about how to actually produce creatives at scale without burning out or wasting your money. First, you need to shift from building a hook library to building a concept library. A concept library is a documented list of all the different angles you can take to communicate your value proposition. For each concept, you write out core messages, the problem it addresses, the proof point you'll use, and the CTA. And when it's time to actually produce creatives, you're not starting from scratch. You're executing against a documented concept. That makes production way more efficient because you're not just sitting in front of the camera trying to figure out what to say. You already know what you're saying, you just have to say it. Second, batch your production by clustering similar concepts together. If you have 3 concepts that all address different aspects of ad performance, shoot all 3 in the same session. You're already set up with a good lighting, clean background, and the right wardrobe, so knock out all of the related concepts at once. This is way more efficient than setting up separately for each single ad, and ensures visual consistency across your ads, which helps with brand recognition and trust. Third, when you find a winning concept, repurpose it across multiple formats. If a long-form concept is working, create a short-form version for cold traffic. If a talking ad is working, create a text on-screen version with it with B-roll. If a static image concept is working, turn it into a video. The core concept stays the same, but you're expanding the ways you can deliver it. This is how you scale creative production without constantly coming up with new ideas. You take what works and find new ways to execute on it. Fourth, use AI tools for creative ideation, not execution. AI is great for brainstorming concepts, generating scripts, outlines, and organizing your creative strategy. But don't use AI to write your full scripts or create your ads, because the output is generic and it won't sound like you. Your voice, your perspective, your specific insights, that's what actually makes your ads perform. AI can help you think through ideas further, but the execution has to be authentically yours. Fifth, document every winning concept and why it worked. Keep a creative brief for each ad that performed, including the concepts, the hooks, the key points, the CTA, and the results. Also note who it resonated with, what targeting was used, and what funnel it fed into. Over time, this becomes your creative playbook, a living document that helps you understand what messaging works for your audience. And when you need to produce new creatives, you're not guessing. You're referencing proven patterns. This is how you build sustainable creative operations instead of just throwing shit at the wall every single month. All right, so to recap everything we just covered about Meta's creative testing overall, Meta changed how it evaluates and serves creatives, shifting towards full ad cohesion instead of just component performance. That means dynamic ads don't work the way they used to, and if you're still using them as a crutch, you're wasting money. The new framework is about building full cohesive ads where every element supports a single concept. You test concepts, not variations, and you make sure the hook, body, visuals, and CTA all align with the core message. Use dynamic ads only for refinement within a winning concept, not for discovery. Structure your campaigns with ad set segmentations to force Meta to test each component properly, and build a creative production system that focuses on concept libraries, batch production, and repurposing winners across formats. This isn't a temporary shift. This is how creative testing works now. And if you don't adapt, you're going to be left behind. The people who understand cohesion, concept testing, and strategic production are going to dominate. The people who keep throwing random shit together like hooks into dynamic ads and hoping for the best are going to keep burning money. So take what I gave you, audit your current creative testing setup, and start restructuring based on this framework. Anyways, that's it for today. Much love, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. Bye.